The more I read through these new court filings, the more I realize how deeply tangled and emotional this entire situation has become, especially for people who have followed these celebrities for years, and for all of us who still believe that the truth, no matter how slow it moves, eventually finds its way into the light. When I started going through the documents earlier today, I felt overwhelmed, not in a negative way, but in that heavy, thoughtful way where you sense that something big has shifted beneath the surface. For months, both sides have argued endlessly, blamed each other, pointed fingers, and tried to paint their own version of reality. But now, Justin Baldoni's legal team and the Wayfair team have stepped forward with their summary judgment filings, and suddenly everything feels different. Sharper, clearer, and honestly, more heartbreaking as the truth begins to stick out from beneath all the noise. While reading, I kept thinking about how emotional it must be for anyone involved. Because when you strip away the Hollywood glamour, the cameras, the big studios, and the crafted public images, you are left with real people, real words, real decisions, and real consequences. Yet among all this, one major detail stands out like a bright light in a foggy room. Blake Lively did not file a summary judgment at all. Whether she missed the deadline or chose not to file one, no one knows yet, but the absence itself speaks volumes. For anyone who doesn't follow legal procedures closely, a summary judgment is basically a way for one side to tell the judge, "Look, we have so much evidence on our side that this should not even go to trial." The other side does not have enough proof to continue. So for Baldoni's team to confidently file over 80 pages of legal arguments, supported by new video clips, texts, emails, and audio recordings, shows that they are extremely certain of their position. And what struck me most while reviewing all this is how calmly, almost patiently, his team explains the inconsistencies in Blake's story. Almost as if they are gently laying truth on the table without shouting or drama, simply saying, "Here it is. Believe what you see." And truly, what we can now see is astonishing. One of the first pieces of video evidence included is from that now famous scene at a bar where everyone was dressed in onesies for a themed gathering. This clip is short, a little grainy, recorded from a distance, but powerful enough to shed new light on the situation. In Blake's original complaint, she claimed Baldoni called her hot inappropriately during that moment, trying to imply he made an unprofessional, personal comment about her looks. But the video shows something different, something simple and ordinary. Baldoni is referring to the temperature inside the bar, explaining that it felt too warm because they had to switch off the AC, and everyone was layered in costumes. Blake, wearing a coat on top of her onesie, misunderstood, or perhaps, as the legal team now argues, misrepresented, what he meant. When Baldoni said, "It's hot," he literally meant the air in the room. And then, another detail becomes clear when you watch carefully. Baldoni points to his own teeth and gestures subtly toward Blake, signaling that she might want a toothpick because something was stuck. It's harmless, human, casual, and in no way suggestive, but Blake later presented it as something uncomfortable or inappropriate. I watched that clip several times, imagining how older viewers watching our channel might feel. Many of you have lived through years of misunderstandings, workplace miscommunications, and situations where something small grew into something dramatic. This whole moment felt like that, just a simple, human misunderstanding turned into a mountain. Another video included is from the dance-related scene, the one involving the very expensive Christian Louboutin heels that were said to cost around $5,000. Blake insisted that her character would absolutely buy shoes that pricey, so she wore them. In the new clip, she sits on the ground discussing how uncomfortable the shoes are, pointing to them and explaining why they were sexy. And here is the irony. She can use the word sexy to describe her own wardrobe, but the lawsuit accuses Baldoni of wrongdoing for referring to clothing in a similar way. The videos make something very clear. Baldoni never called Blake herself sexy, never commented on her body, never crossed that line. His comments, when they existed at all, were about wardrobe choices or scenes, not her identity as a woman. And that distinction becomes deeply important when you look at the entire case. The legal filings emphasize this to the judge, not with anger, but with calm, detailed explanation, almost like telling a story where the facts gently guide you to the conclusion. Then, another new piece of evidence appears, a video of people hugging Baldoni on the set. Blake claimed he hugged people too much, making her feel uncomfortable. But this clip shows something different. Crew members approaching him, cast members happily embracing him, younger actors running into his arms with excitement. Even Isabella Ferrer, who later changed her stance against him, originally hugged him freely and sent him messages saying she had the best time ever working with him. The video doesn't show a man forcing affection. It shows people naturally gravitating towards someone they feel comfortable with. And for many of our senior viewers who have lived through decades of observing human behavior, I think this detail is especially important, because genuine comfort and forced behavior look very different. You can feel it instinctively, and this video feels warm, natural, and far from the uncomfortable environment Blake later described. But the most shocking clip among the new evidence is a cut scene from the hospital sequence, one that was never included in the final movie. In the footage, Blake's character approaches Baldoni's character and suddenly leans in to kiss him. Unscripted, unexpected, improvised. Baldoni calls cut, and the look on his face says everything. His expression is uncomfortable, not pleased or attracted, but wishing for distance. It's a small moment, yet incredibly revealing. This single clip flips Blake's entire claim on its head, because she had alleged that Baldoni repeatedly lingered during kissing scenes, that he was too close, too eager, too drawn to her. But this video shows the opposite. It shows her initiating an unplanned kiss while Baldoni looks ready to walk away. And that emotion becomes even clearer when paired with the newly revealed emails. The emails show Baldoni explaining to the team how Blake rewrote or altered scenes without discussion, took control of wardrobe decisions, changed shooting locations, and reshaped the tone of the project. In one email, he expresses frustration after she moved an intimate scene from a bedroom to the kitchen, removing the gentle closeness he had planned and replacing it with dialogue that disrupted the emotional flow. And then the most striking sentence appears, plain and honest. "The last thing I want to do is kiss this woman." That line feels raw, real, and exhausted. Not something you write if you're pursuing someone, but something you say when you feel pushed beyond comfort. It reveals a man trying to maintain professionalism while feeling deeply uncomfortable around his co-star. Older viewers who have decades of life experience know authenticity when they see it, and this email reads like truth, not performance. All of this combined, the videos, the emails, the contradictions in Blake's story, the legal team's calm explanations, creates a picture that is becoming harder and harder to ignore. And what amazes me most is not the drama itself, but how long people believe the opposite version of events. Hollywood is a place where image often matters more than reality, where polished statements overshadow simple honesty. But now that these documents are being unsealed, video clips are emerging, and arguments are being organized clearly, it feels like a curtain is slowly being pulled back. And as I sat with all these documents, reading them one by one, I couldn't help but feel a heaviness, not sadness, but the weight of clarity. The weight that comes when the truth starts to quietly settle into place. Our audience here at Celeb Club is older, wiser, calm, measured. Many of you have lived through hard truths, disappointments, misunderstandings, and revelations. You know what it feels like when something finally starts to make sense after months of confusion. That is exactly what today felt like. A slow, steady unfolding of truth. Not dramatic, not explosive, just undeniable. As the storm around Diddy continued to grow, and new voices came forward with stories that shook the public to its core, Justin Bieber found himself walking through memories he had spent years trying to bury deep inside the quiet corners of his mind. It wasn't easy for him, because every new allegation felt like a mirror reflecting parts of his own past that he wished had never existed. Even though he had become a man, married, grounded, calmer, and more connected to faith, the echoes of his teenage years still carried a weight that pressed on his heart when he least expected it. He remembered how the business had swallowed him whole when he was just a boy, barely old enough to understand contracts, fame, or adult behavior. He remembered how Diddy would invite him into spaces that felt glamorous on the outside, but uncomfortable on the inside. Rooms filled with people too old, too confident, too entitled, whispering things he didn't fully understand at the time. There were nights when Justin would laugh and go along with everything because he thought that was what young stars were supposed to do. Yet inside he felt a nervous flutter in his chest that never quite settled. And now, as a grown man watching the news, Justin realized those nervous flutters were warnings he simply didn't know how to listen to back then. The world was shocked by the accusations against Diddy, but Justin wasn't shocked, he was reminded. He remembered the pressure to always be on, to never say no, to follow the rules that weren't written but were expected. Diddy had a way of controlling a room, and a teenager like Justin had no idea how to protect himself from the influence of a man who seemed larger than life. Even after all these years, Justin could still remember moments where he felt cornered by attention he didn't want, moments that made him uncomfortable but were brushed aside as industry culture. And now that those same patterns were being exposed in lawsuits, Justin felt something heavy unraveling inside him. He found himself sitting at the edge of his bed at night, staring into the dim light of his room, trying to understand why someone he once admired had treated him like property instead of a child needing guidance. Haley watched him closely during those moments, gently placing a hand on his shoulder, reminding him he wasn't alone anymore. She didn't push him into talking. She simply held the space for him, giving him permission to feel what he had spent so long suppressing. Justin realized that part of the pain came from the silence he had kept for so many years, believing that no one would take his feelings seriously because he was a global superstar with fans who only wanted the happy, smiling version of him. But behind that smile had been a frightened boy desperate for someone to set boundaries Diddy never respected. Sometimes he wondered what might have happened if he hadn't stepped away. If he hadn't found his own team, his own wife, his own faith. Those thoughts scared him, not because he wanted to relive the past, but because he finally understood how close he had come to losing himself entirely in a world built on power, secrets, and manipulation. As more people spoke publicly, Justin began to feel a strange mixture of sadness and strength building inside him. Sadness for the boy he had been, strength for the man he had become. He wasn't angry at God for letting the past happen. He was grateful that he had survived it. In quiet conversations with Haley, he sometimes admitted that he felt guilty for escaping when others hadn't. She reminded him that healing wasn't a betrayal of anyone. It was a necessary step toward reclaiming the life he almost lost. And slowly, Justin allowed himself to confront the truth he had avoided for years. He had been too young, too trusting, and too vulnerable in the presence of a man who treated vulnerability like something he could exploit. Justin's heart ached not just for himself, but for every young artist who might still be walking into rooms they don't understand, surrounded by adults who pretend to care while thinking only of control. Because Justin knew the truth now. Fame at a young age wasn't a blessing unless someone protected you, and Diddy had never been that protector. In fact, he had been the opposite. And as Justin connected the dots, he realized something even more painful. The entertainment world had seen the warning signs for years, but looked away because power blinds those who benefit from it. He wasn't just processing memories. He was grieving a childhood stolen by an industry that demanded everything and offered so little safety in return. Now, as the world watched Diddy's empire collapse, Justin felt no joy, no satisfaction. Only a deep, quiet release, as if a weight he had carried in silence was finally beginning to lift. One painful memory at a time. As Justin watched the world slowly piece together the truth about Diddy, he realized he was standing at the edge of a chapter he had never been brave enough to close. For so long, he had tried to move forward without looking back, believing that ignoring the past was the easiest way to survive it. But trauma has a quiet way of following a person, slipping into their dreams, hiding behind their smiles, and whispering reminders when life finally becomes peaceful. Justin had built a life filled with love, faith, and stability, yet deep inside there was still that wounded younger version of himself who had never been given a chance to speak. Now, with each new report, each victim stepping forward, each detail that made headlines, Justin felt that younger version stirring, frightened, confused, but finally understood. He realized that silence had protected the wrong person for too long. It had protected Diddy, the powerful star with connections, resources, lawyers, and a lifetime of influence behind him. But it had never protected Justin. His silence had only protected his own fear. Sitting beside Haley one quiet evening, he finally let the truth inside him find a voice. Not for the world, not for social media, not for revenge, but for himself. He told her how he remembered the pressure to act older than he was, the uncomfortable moments disguised as mentorship, the controlling conversations that left him feeling small and powerless, and the way Diddy treated him like something to shape rather than someone to guide. Haley listened with tears in her eyes, holding his hands as if she were holding the pieces of his past that had been shattered by fame. She didn't tell him to forget. She didn't tell him to be strong. She just held him and reminded him that healing is not weakness. It is courage. Justin understood then that his journey wasn't about exposing anyone. It was about reclaiming himself. As the investigations deepened and the world demanded accountability from Diddy, Justin felt something shift inside him, like a heavy door opening after years of being locked shut. He realized he was no longer that scared teenager who believed his worth depended on powerful men. He was a grown man with a family, with faith, with wisdom, and with a heart that had learned to survive even the darkest corners of fame. And though he knew he might never share every detail publicly, he understood that sharing his pain with the people he loved was a step toward healing the pieces of himself he thought would remain broken forever. For the first time, he prayed not for clarity or strength, but for peace. And peace came quietly, gently, like a soft breeze entering a room that had been closed for years. Meanwhile, the world watched Diddy's empire fall apart, but Justin didn't celebrate any of it. He didn't smile when headlines announced new lawsuits or arrests. He didn't feel victorious when people online called out behavior that had once been hidden. All he felt was a calm sense of distance, as if he were watching a chapter finally end from the outside rather than living inside it. Justice looked different for everyone, and for Justin, justice was simply freedom. From the memories, from the fear, from the guilt of wondering what he could have done differently as a child. He realized he had survived something he didn't have the language to describe back then, and survival itself was a form of victory. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but each day felt a little lighter, each memory a little less sharp, each breath a little easier. As he moved forward, Justin made a quiet promise to himself. He would never let another young artist walk blindly into the kind of danger he once faced. He would speak gently, guide carefully, and protect fiercely, becoming the mentor he once needed. And though the world would continue to talk about Diddy for years, about the lawsuits, the secrets, the downfall, Justin knew his own story was no longer tied to that man. His story now belonged to the life he had built, the love he had found, and the strength he had discovered within himself. With that realization, the last shadow of his past finally began to fade, leaving behind a man who had survived the storm and learned, at last, how to walk in the light.